Running fans, jumping fans, throwing fans, all around athletics fans. Welcome to Talking in Ovals. I'm Alex Cuesta. Partner in crime over there is Dave Hyatt with his swag from his new school. What's going on, Hyatt?
Not much, man. What a crazy emotional weekend for this sport and week in general. We had some really, really fast times, and then obviously we'll get into it in a second. But the tragedy that took place yesterday, but yeah, just a lot of crazy things going on this week.
Yeah. I mean, it's been between Milrose and sections over in Jersey and things like that, and sectionals in New York. Like, there's a lot going on in the world of indoor track and stuff like that. So we're excited to get into it. Before we get into all the fun stuff, give us a like, share, follow, subscribe, 5 stars on Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Find us on the socials at the Alex Cuesta Show. For those keeping score at home, today's Monday, February 12th of 2024, episode 75 of the show. And, we're just keeping on rolling here. We're having a great time what we're doing. So before we jump into this week's show, I want to give last week's show a shout out. We had the head XC coach from Northern Burlington and one of the great female distance runners in New Jersey, an 11th grader from Northern Burlington. We had Coach Ryan Rafferty and athlete Lilia Gordon, who had an incredible double at the sectional this weekend. 1,632, winning both of them. So that's, it's all talking novels. We bring the luck. You come on our shows, you do great things. That's just how it works. So far, we have seen that. So, it's been proven time and time again. So that is what we do over here. Little things to get through. We want to send rest in peace to Kevin Kiptoom. Out of all this excitement going on this weekend in the world of track and field, we got tragic news. Best marathoner on the planet, 24 years old. Kevin Kiptoom tragically passed away in a car accident. Him and his coach, and I believe one other passenger, were in there, and the whole track world felt it, the whole running world felt it. So we just want to send our condolences, and that's the only thing I could say. The reaction on X and things like that and Instagram says it itself. Dave, you saw a lot of it too. You were the one that kind of brought it to all of our attention.
Yeah, it's just an absolute tragedy. I mean, 24 years old, in the absolute prime, or not even in his prime yet, of marathon running. He just seemed to just have this knack to just really, really compete and win, and it's just going to be sad that we won't be able to see that anymore.
Yeah, he had the record. It was 2 hours, and that was on a marathon actual race where, Kipchoge did it in a rabbit style with the sub 2, but we were really poised to see a legitimate sub 2 hour in a race, which is unbelievable. But I mean, the Olympic marathon's not going to be the same. He was the preemptive favorite, and we know marathons are unpredictable, but just he was somebody in his prime, and we all feel robbed, and obviously it sucks for everyone. So just want to send out our condolences, and hopefully, the Olympic marathon will be great in his honor. That's really the best thing we can hope for.
Yes.
So jumping to a few more things. We'll get back into the positive a little bit here because we want to have an upbeat, fun show now. Manchester Township boys with the three-peat. This year, the expectations were, they lost a good amount, but it was a ridiculous team effort. Joe Kierick, who won 2 events, Brian Swain with the pole vault, these shot putters with 3 people scoring.
Yep.
It's just an incredible all-around effort. I mean, I'm missing people there, but
Will Ashton in the 16 and a 32.
Will Ashton 16 and winning in the 4x4. They won the meet by 0.32 seconds, beating the team in second place. It was a 1-point victory, and they dropped the baton.
Yep, dropped the baton. That's why you always pick it up and you finish the race. You don't sulk. You don't feel any pity for yourself. You grab it and you finish because you never know what is going to happen.
Exactly. So shout out to Coach Griff. Shout out to those boys. We'll be having a few of those boys on, I believe, next week. So
nope. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Good. That's why you're here, because I'm dumb. But shout out to them. We're pumped for all of them. Obviously my alma mater, Dave coached there, and Our guest today also coached there, but we're not getting to her yet. She's gonna wait. But so we want to jump in quickly. We're gonna run through these PRs because we have another bunch which we love. Our friend Tom Figueroa sent us more from Red Hour Track Club over out in Michigan. They were at the Saginaw Valley State University Distance Festival there. Senior Alex Moyer ran the mile in 4:53.92, and then senior Shea White ran the mile in 4:39.81, and also doubled in an 800, 1:56.98. So a monster double for Shea there. And then the girls, eighth grader Audrey Klein in the 1600 ran a 5:42.79. Beatrice, I'm going to butcher your last name, Perichetti. I hope I did it well. Let me know if I sucked or not. She's a sophomore. She ran the 1 mile in a 5:47.35. Elena Figueroa Jr. ran the mile in 5 flat.05. And Haley Schiffenender, I butchered that one last time too. She's a junior. She ran the mile in 5:27.39. So congrats to all of them over there. Over in Michigan. We love our fans in Southwest Michigan. We need to get some Michiganders on the show. We did technically because we had Danielle Toro. She ran over at Michigan, so she's like a transplant Michigander. I guess we can
Yes.
consider her that. So we had some love there. So last one from me. Our friends over at Ocean, Coach Lynch, sent us this. Olivia Palutis in the 800 ran a monster PR of 2:21.17. She reset her own school record over at Ocean, and that was at the Central Group 3 Sectional Championships, which saw a lot of good times. Hyatt, take them away.
All right, I'm going to continue with that same meet where I am teaching now in Manasquan. We have the 1600 Central Group 2 champ and Angelina George running 5:10. She also came back in third place in 2:18. Kat Keith ran 2:21 to get fifth place in that 800. And Charlotte Stroff with a new Manasquan indoor 3,200 meter record of 11 minutes and 45 seconds. And Chris Reyes also qualified in the 8. On to our buddy Wilfredo Rivera at Heightstown. He had at the Central Group 2 meet, he had Jack Kane with a big PR to get second in the 3,200 at 9:45.29, and Mason Johnson got 1,600 in the 4:48.85. And what I think is probably the biggest thing from people that we know from this past week is Westfield. They ran at Ocean Breeze and ran 2 absolutely monster races. They won the 4x8 in 7:52.34 with Graham Corrins running 2:03. Caleb Stockman 1:57, Ryan Daly 1:54, and Alex Valencia 1:56. And earlier in the meet, they had a DMR of 4 completely different individuals, which is crazy to have 2 sets of teams. They ran at that time the number 1 time in the country in a DMR, 10:06.49, Westfield high school record. Tage Meta ran a 1,200 and 3:10. Emmanuel Gallinolo ran the 400 and 49.3. Jimmy Gildea ran a 156.2, and Avery Keith brought it home in a 410.37. Again, number 1 time in the country. Followed secondly by CBA, who ran another blazing time of 10:09. What a great rivalry those 2 teams had, but it's all class, it's all love. It's just going out there and competing. Coaches are friends, and it's just awesome to see. And I can't wait to see what happens with those teams in the future.
And Avery also record for the mile there with that 4:10. Coach put down, and I mean it's crazy to think that Tefelsky could possibly have arguably one of the best public school teams easily one of the best public school distance squads in the country. You saw that in XC, but man, he's just putting together such a team there that it's going to be really fun to see what they do, at Penn Relays and stuff like that. I'm pumped to see it. They're going to go in there and kick some doors in. So I'm pumped for that. So that's all the PRs we have this week. Thank you for everybody sending them, but technically it isn't because our guest is bringing some on her own. We are pumped to have her on. She coached with all of us. She's one of my good friends, and she's not in Jersey, just like me. We're both out of there, but she is Megan Blue. She's the head track coach at Chesapeake High School, Baltimore County, and she is a Toms River North alumni. What is going on, Blue?
Hi, how are you guys?
We're doing well. We're doing well. We are pumped to have you on. I mean, I'm being sandwiched by Toms River people here, so I don't know if I'm happy about that, but I guess it's okay. It's all Ocean.
Nothing better than a Tom's River sandwich.
I mean,
Exactly.
I mean, it's honestly the way it is. Like Manchester, just in the middle of all you guys kind of hating each other out there. So we're like the mediators, the redheaded stepsisters hanging out. So I want to jump right into it with you, Blue, because one of our favorite questions that we ask all of our guests, and I think gives us some of our best stuff that we do. When did you get the spark to become a runner? Oh no,
Why don't
no,
we
do your
let her get her
PRs
PRs
first.
out of the way?
Yeah.
I suck.
Yeah.
Just do your PRs.
Okay. So I have some PRs for my two senior sprinters this year. So I recently switched schools, but I'm still coaching at my old school. And one of my main reasons for staying was because of these seniors. So I'm so excited that they are showing up when it matters and all their hard work is showing off. So I have Akila in the 300 ran a 43:06, and in the 55 ran a 7.9. And then Michael in the 55 ran a 7.71, and in the 300 ran a 44.39.
Nice.
Very nice.
So this week was our region meet, which is like comparable to sectionals in New Jersey. So they both ended up qualifying for what we call states, which is basically groups in New Jersey.
Do you guys have a meet of champs, or are you one of the states that you have, like New York, you have fake state champions?
We do not have a meet of champs, and it's one of the things that makes me crazy because I think it's amazing to have a meet of champs, and we don't have one. So when they say states, I'm like, no, it's really just groups. Like it's not the real deal.
A lot of states are similar in that aspect.
Yeah, I think I don't know, they should do like a survey on what states do like legitimate like championship meets, because I know some do. I know some other states have that, but I know Jersey's pretty unique with it. And I mean, our meet of champs is better than everyone else's anyway. So now let's jump into you, Blue. We want to get into you. Being a runner is something that not many people truly pick. We've had some great guests here that are like, hey, I ran my whole life. It's what I wanted to do. But we also have the mix of, I was trying to do this sport and I realized I wasn't that great. Where do you fall, Blue? What gave you the spark to become a runner? And you are a lifelong runner, still competing, still training, still running marathons.
Yeah. So whenever I listen to your show, I hear this question and I don't have a true, like, this was it moment. For me, it's kind of been like a progressive thing. I ran winter track as a freshman in high school to get in shape for lacrosse. I had been a dancer my whole life and like played sports, but never really had like my area. So then I was going to play lacrosse in the spring. So I was like, oh, I'll do winter track. And that's ended up loving it. Still did lacrosse, but then decided to do cross country the following year. If you ask my mom, she says I did cross country because the cross country team went to Disney every year and I wanted to go to Disney. I say it's because I enjoyed the team and I wanted to do cross country.
I'm going to go with mom there.
Yeah, Disney didn't hurt. I don't think, and knowing Mama Blue is right about most things, okay? So I can imagine Disney didn't hurt.
Yes. So I did get to go to Disney for all 3 years once I joined in high school. And the team at North was always like, we always had a ton of people. It was always a lot of fun. And it really just was like, I was going to practice and hanging out with my friends. And like, it was a very social thing for me. And then I'm naturally competitive. So it was like the right amount of like, hey, I get to hang out with my friends, but I'm also like doing something where I have control over like how much I improve and don't improve and like all that kind of stuff. So that what kind of got me into it initially. And then I decided to run in college. And very similar to the high school, I loved the team. I loved like my social circle was my teammates for the most part. And so just continued to love the sport. And then now since I moved to Baltimore, I joined a team here, Falls Road Running, and that has like kept the love there also. I have some great friends that I run with regularly. I just did a run with a bunch of them yesterday, which was a lot of fun. So it really has been, like I said, that combination of like the social aspect, but also my competitive edge kind of coming into play.
It's fun too when you talk about, because we graduated the same year of high school and stuff like that. So we went all through. Dave when Dave was there, South was like the best Tom's River school. Like they had a really
Oh,
good
yeah.
team there. When we were around,
At
though,
least on the boys' side.
yeah, when we were there, it was like for me with the guys, it was North and East were stronger. South wasn't as good. And then I was just kind of fitting in there somewhere, racing against all your guys. How was it going to school at that time? And like, what was your highlights with like your girls, running in high school and things like that, running in college? What are some of the fun highlights that you had?
So I was kind of like a middle of the ground. Like I was not one of the top runners. I in cross country, it's the top 7. I was normally 7. Like that was kind of where I was at. Like so, I was on the team and I was on varsity, but like I wasn't anything special. But I just remember having so much fun with the team, and even though I wasn't necessarily the one like scoring the points and doing like, we just had so much fun. Whether it was when we were in Disney or we won some county championships, we won some like. So again, I wasn't the one scoring the points, but it was just a lot of fun to be like around that kind of program and that kind of success.
Who was coaching then? Was that Ichibo or
Yeah. So Ichibo and then Whitehall, who you guys
Whitehall?
had on this summer.
Great,
They were
yes.
my 2. Yep.
She's
So,
great.
but we do always say, like, we've said this before, XC teams especially, you're as strong as your last varsity spot. So it's like you being there, like, I could imagine there were meets where you definitely stepped up to like the 5th spot when you needed to and things like that. So success isn't only like you obviously need to have good leaders, a good top 3 in order to be good, but don't discount yourself.
Absolutely
You're
not.
varsity, you're only like, there's a reason why there's 7 runners on varsity, right? If you have a strong 7, then you have a good team. So how about college? What was any fun highlights, any things you can remember in college that you can reveal without your athletes making fun of you?
Um, I, Kind of a similar situation in college. My team was good in our conference. Again, I was like the 7th runner for the most part. We were in the Capital Athletic Conference. It was Salisbury's Division 3. But we were either won the conference or were competing very close every year I was there. I distinctly remember one year we thought we lost the conference cross country meet, and we all go on our cool down and we're like crying and sad. And then our graduate assistant at the time like came and found us on our cool down, like sprinted over to us and was like, what? And like then we all start crying again. So we went from like this, we thinking we lost to winning, and like it was and it was Halloween weekend, so we then went like back to Salisbury and celebrated, and that is probably, when I look at college, my most fun day in college was running that race, winning, and then like hanging out and celebrating with my team.
That's the
That
best.
was always one of the hardest parts as a coach. And especially as like you're counting spots in cross country and you're trying to figure out like where you are, if it's like a close race and stuff. So I could imagine that had to be like awful for your coach, like watching you guys go away moping. And then your coach is probably one pushing the graduates. Says like, go get them and tell them. Like
Yeah.
that had to be fun. So did you know that you wanted to be a coach while you were running over at Salisbury, or even was this a goal of yours to jump into coaching when you came out?
So kind of, I definitely, and I'm going to give my sister a shout out. She was working at Manchester when I was in college. And I was an elementary ed major. And I wanted to teach elementary. And she said to me, like, sophomore, junior year, you should really do secondary. You should be a high school teacher, because then you can coach and you can like, I just think that would be a better fit for you. And I was like, no, I love the little kids. I'm going to teach elementary school. And then when I graduated and I came back to New Jersey and didn't get an elementary job, so I was substitute teaching at Manchester, which is when I ended up coaching with you guys.
Yep.
My sister was right. Like I did enjoy coaching, and I loved it. Like that was my first experience with it. And then I ended up wanting to teach high school, and I haven't left high school since then. So, yeah, that desire to want to like coach and still be involved in this sport definitely was there when I was in college and has not stopped.
Love it.
So what have been some of your fun memories as a coach now? As you take it out, as you're in Manchester, you're over at Lakewood as well, and you've had a few stops. What has been some of your best memories with like what athletes have done and accomplishments they've had?
Yeah, so I volunteered at Manchester with you guys, but then my first like year teaching, I was at Wall High School. And both head coaches, boys and girls, left that year. So I was a brand new teacher, and they're like, here's the boys head coaching position. And I was a 24-year-old. Yeah, I was a 24-year-old female that just became the boys head coach. And I was like, but it threw me into it, but I loved it. It was an awesome experience. And we had some success, but it was also just like, I had a great team. I had a lot of fun with them. And it solidified the decision to go high school and continue to coach. And then at Lakewood, I had a couple really good athletes. One of them being a shot putter who wasn't necessarily like mine, because I'm a distance runner who has become more of a sprint coach now. But like, he was very successful, ended up throwing over 60 feet in the shot put. Wow. Wanted to play football in college, so he's actually now at Maine, just finished at Maine. And so it was awesome to see his success because he was just like a really good kid. And then I had a few others at Lakewood also that kind of stick out. One went to Jordan Court, and she was a sprinter that I loved. So and because I was their teacher also, it was awesome to see like just them as freshmen and then to senior year and like see the growth like as whole people and athletes. And then
just for reference, I do remember the text and phone calls when you got the Wall job, because I remember one of them was like, how the hell do I coach a bunch of guys? Like, you're like, I don't know, like, what should I do?
And she figured it out and did a great job.
Yeah. And it's funny now, I do love my girls that I'm coaching, but there was a couple times throughout my career that I was like, I would much rather coach the boys than the girls. But at the time, like I said, when I was 24 and my first coaching job was a head boys coach, it was a little nerve wracking.
That was a funny text and conversations following after as to, your mindset. And we've had many conversations between you going there and Lakewood and things like that. And, in Baltimore and all that. So yeah, keep on going. You're doing.
Yeah, and then to wrap it up with the coaching, at least, I'm at Chesapeake High School in Baltimore County now, which is a smaller school, and it's a smaller team. And one thing that's been a challenge for me is I have been the consistent since I've been there. I've coached winter and spring. This is year 6 now. But every season I've had a different coach with me until last year. The coach was there for both winter and spring last year. So I was just trying to like create a program, and I was getting like, oh, we just need a body. So like, here's this football coach or here's this soccer coach. And so that's been a challenge for me, is to like kind of create this program by myself in a smaller school with like not the experience I had in high school, which was like the huge team. And like, so how do I recreate what made me fall in love with the sport in a totally different like situation? But I've loved the kids all the same.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, like a team's only as good as all of its coaches, because every coach is so important in every content area. So it's super beneficial to work with coaches that you trust and love. And that's why you see teams like Manchester or these other teams who have had coaches in place for a while have continued success, because it's all about character, and you build this whole team structure. So it's definitely hard if you're there. Plus, you were in a whole different state. You didn't know any of the other coaches, so you're kind of there by yourself. But yeah, the importance of having people that are like minded coaching with you is so huge.
Yeah, and that's definitely been a challenge for me to not really have that. And last year when I started, or I had a coach join me last winter, and then spring, and then we actually coached AAU in the summer together. And it was the first time since I've been in Maryland that I actually had a coach where like we really clicked. We coached well together. We had the same like mindset and expectations, and the kids vibed with us well. So that made a huge difference last year. And he'll be back with me in the spring. So I'm excited to have that back because yeah, I'm trying to create this, like I want it to be fun. I want them to come out. I want them to compete. I want them to work hard. But if I don't have a counterpart kind of supporting that, it can be challenging. So my girls that I already shouted out, they've been consistent and working hard. So so it's good to see their success now.
I could imagine the challenge that it would be where, like, you're not only trying to train these athletes, but you're also trying to, in a way, train other coaches, right? Because if they're just stepping in to help you out, they're now looking to you as the veteran track coach, as the veteran XC coach to like give me tips and pointers or what should I do here. So now it's kind of like you're the coach, but I'm almost helping you run both programs until you really get your feet wet and understand, like, here, read these track books, like try and figure out how to do workouts. I'll help you. And until you do it, until you design workouts, I haven't designed many, like I've been a lot of assistant coaches and helping out. I've done few, but like, until you do it on a consistent basis and try to get athletes from like, early season, mid-season, championship season, peaking at the right time for 3 seasons at times, some XC indoor, outdoor, like it is an absolute science and a challenge, and everyone's different. So that also makes it so, you were mentioning, going from state to state and things like that. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about was the differences in being, in coaching in different states. Like you obviously coached in New Jersey and now you're in Maryland. You mentioned, competing at North and even coaching at like Manchester and things like that. So what have been all the changes and differences that you have seen from like state to state, school to school that you kind of want to bring up? And I do have to say, you did scold me at one point not too long ago because we were on the podcast complaining about flat indoor tracks and things like that. And then you texted me and you're just like, our lone indoor track is closing, so shut up.
Yeah. So growing up in New Jersey, like I said, I did some sports as a kid, but but Tom's River is all sports all the time, crazy sports. There's a lot of like money invested in sports. There's lots of like parents take it seriously, kids take it seriously. And this is like across the board for sports. And I haven't necessarily felt that same like energy in Maryland. Yeah, there are kids that take their sports seriously and whatever. But coming from Tom's River, like it just hasn't leveled up to that. And then when talking about like facilities and things like that, our indoor track season happens at this indoor track that's in Baltimore City. It has an all-purpose floor surface, not a track surface. It doesn't even have lanes all the way around. So they run the 300 and they cut in after like 100 meters. It is a 200 meter, but it's still, not track surface, not lanes all the way around, and if we do want to, or like go to another facility, the closest one is like down near FedEx Field, which is near DC. And we can do that, but that costs money. And that's not always like, there's not always money in the athletic department to send us to meets like that. So unfortunately, most of my athletes spend their entire season competing on this terrible indoor track, which is why these girls ended up running so fast last week, because they finally ran on a real track, and got to wear spikes and got but yeah, there's not really many places to compete on a real track around here. So and if we go, it's tough to go out of state because there's just regulations behind that. So I would take the bubble, Ocean Breeze, the Armory. I don't care. I'd take any of it over the facility that we're working at. So
we have to get our friend Patrick Bugansky, who was on the show from ATT Sports, to go down there and start laying down some indoor tracks for you guys.
Yeah, I would. And one of my best friends used to coach at Morris Hills, and she would complain about, oh, we're at the bubble again. Oh, the bubble. I'm like, I would take the bubble like in a heartbeat. I want the bubble back.
People always shit on the bubble, but man, it is for what it is. It is an unbelievable place. I was there yesterday for the first time in a while, and I'm like, just the fact that you have a 200-meter. I mean, it's flat, but it's fast. I mean, like, kids still run fast. Like, it's to have it. It's been an absolute blessing. But they are going to resurface it, I think, this coming summer. So hopefully they'll add a little bank or something. But
And Blue, we remember going to Princeton and Red Bank and having to go to the Jersey City Armory when it reopened.
Of course, Drew University.
I don't think we went to Drew. You guys might have went, but we did. Generally, it was Red Bank, and then when the bubble came around, it was like, oh, we don't have to go to Princeton anymore. Princeton sucked. You were like back in the stands. You couldn't see the race like when it was on the far side. The warm-up area sucked. Like, you know, the bubble
couldn't wear spikes.
Couldn't wear spikes. We couldn't spike up in the bubble in the beginning. I didn't think we were. We let that. We had to wear waffles still.
No. It just had to be 8th pins.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It was smaller.
It had to be a little
smaller spikes. Yeah.
And they check every meet still, just so that they can preserve the surface.
Can't blame them for that. Like, they might want to do that. So
not at all.
So give us a little more. So, you know, after you're done yelling at us about us complaining, and unfortunately, we will still whine and complain because, you know, us, a bunch of 100% complainers. But give us a little bit insight of what it's like to go from like state to state coaching. From what are the differences that you've seen coming from New Jersey and now being in Maryland in terms of what each state's like compete, like run, like
are there different events?
Yeah, and things like that.
Yeah. So there are some different events. So I shouted out the girls in the 300 because our sprint events are indoor, are the 300 and the 500, which is interesting. There's no 200, no 400. We have the regular like relays, but it's a 300 and a 500. So that's definitely different. There are still a lot of like fast and talented kids here. And hopefully they're on teams that get to go and run on real tracks so that they can show off their talents. But like, there's still a lot of good athletes. But I think one of the major differences is like the financial aspect. Coaches get paid better in New Jersey. There's more money like given to, like, I remember when I was at Wall and Lakewood, every season I was given like, here's your budget. Like, what do you want to order? And it wasn't like a lot of stuff, but we were able to get some new stuff and whatever every year. Like, I don't really get to do that here. Like, I had to like beg for new uniforms. And part of it is I could probably fundraise more for my team. But again, I'm running 2 programs by myself, essentially. So that doesn't always work out.
Yeah, easy.
And, so yeah, I don't really get that like, oh, like we can buy some equipment that we need or whatever. And I feel like overall it's like not valued as much as it is in New Jersey. And there's always the difference between sport to sport. Obviously, like the football and basketball they're like the hype sports and they're going to get more stuff. And that happens in every state. But I feel like it's even more of a discrepancy in Maryland because there's like just not a lot of money or not as much money in sports, I think.
And I feel like, you know, Jersey kind of considers itself a track state. Like we have that pride. Like we produced some incredible athletes that have gone on the collegiate level, been successful, pros and things like that. So I feel like there's part of that too, where no one in Jersey kind of wants to fall behind from that kind of tradition. They want to have their, their shining star and things like that. And I mean, like, what is Maryland known for? Maryland's known for basketball. Basketball is like their big, big thing. So I could see why that's a thing. And I mean, the further south you go, the less they care about indoor, right? That's kind of been like a lot of times there's like culture shock for like people from Florida, and now they're running indoor and they're like, the hell's indoor? Like they go to like these colleges out in the SEC and they're like coming up to the Northeast and they're like, what is this? Like, what are we doing inside running? This is nonsense. So I feel like that could partially be it, just kind of like the geography and things like that.
Yeah. And so lacrosse is obviously huge in Maryland also. So when we're talking spring sports, like that takes priority to everything. And coaching at a smaller school, we're competing, the teams are competing for the athletes because there's only so many of them. It's a small school and they can only do so many things. So like without stealing athletes from other sports and stuff, it's hard to put together a full team because like you have your handful of students that are academically eligible and can do sports, and now all like the lacrosse coach, the baseball coach, and the track coach are all competing for those same kids. And same thing with like basketball, wrestling, and indoor track. Like that's been a challenge because there's only so many of them at a small school, and we can't all have them. If we could duplicate some of them, I would.
Now here's a question: does Maryland have a steeplechase outdoor?
Not in high school.
Not in high school.
Yeah, I ran steeple when I was in college, so I did run it in, but not in high school. They also don't throw the javelin.
Really?
Yeah.
Do they have a weight throw down there? Because New York has steeple and weight throw. I know New Jersey, so they don't have it in Maryland either. Now, no, in Jersey and even in New York, track and field's considered a non-contact sport. So you're technically allowed to do track with a contact sport. Does Maryland have that where they could technically do lacrosse and come run meets?
It's so hard, though.
It's so hard, yes.
I wish they could, but I don't think they can. And if they could, and I've been missing this for 5 years, I'm going to be kicking myself.
You need to go look at the bylaws.
But I don't think so. So that would, I mean, it would be tough to do that. But like, there's a kid right now who plays basketball and baseball. He's a senior. He did summer track, AAU summer track, but he's never actually ran track for school because he does basketball and baseball. But he would like, if there was no basketball practice or something, he'd come out and like run workouts with us. Probably not like technically allowed, but whatever.
Don't say that, Blue. Don't get him in trouble. God.
But like that's the type of kid where like I wish that I could have him on the track team, but I'm not going to steal him from the sport that he has been playing his whole life or whatever, No,
steal him because we've had some of the
athletes.
We've had some of the greatest athletes, like Andrew Valman, Manchester's finest, was not a runner until Coach Musoff was like, "Stop doing what you're doing. Get over here." And we know no one says no to John Musoff. So, but no, steal them because we even had the great Johnny Gray was like, "I wasn't a runner at all." And then in a year he goes from like 210 to 152. So it's something insane.
It was ridiculous.
So, steal them, especially small schools. Theft every single one.
They would steal them from you in a heartbeat.
Yeah, don't be the tracky one that'll sit down and be like, "No, don't come here." Be like, "No, come triple jump for me. You can dunk, come triple jump and high jump. You'll get a scholarship here. Everyone can dunk in high school. People can't jump 44 and triple. Get over here." Like
yeah.
So yes, that's our advice. Talking Nova's advice: go steal other athletes,
pillage all of them,
pillage them all. So we talked about state to state. You kind of mentioned the small school that you have to deal with there. How's that been like going from you were over at Wall, Lakewood, and now in Maryland? What has that been like? Differences in like schools? Has it been tough to kind of like create cultures where you need to or adjust to certain cultures? Because I feel like that's a huge part of any athletic program, right? Is the culture that is set. Have you found that that's been kind of an adjustment, a tough thing to do go from Wall, which other sports, right? Wall like sports to Lakewood to, where you're at in Chesapeake. How's that been?
Um, yeah, that's definitely been a major challenge. Because like I said earlier, like I'm trying to create like what made me fall in love with the sport in high school. That team camaraderie, that like, yeah, it's fun, but we're also working hard and it's hard to create that because it's. I was talking to a coach from New Jersey recently, and he was saying he he was always quantity over quality because the quantity could turn into quality. And like, so you try and get as many kids out for the team as you can. And like, eventually a few of them could end up being stars, but just getting a lot of them out. And that's really hard to do at these small schools. Cause like I said, we're competing with other sports and there's only so many kids. So it has been very tough to like create the vibe that I had in high school, but in a smaller school. So,
Well, I mean, even here, being smaller school, because I've coached mostly like the group 2 level. It is harder because, the injury aspect, like you lose one kid, it could ruin your whole season. Whereas, sometimes the larger schools do have that luxury to, all right, like we can sustain this injury longer. So it is harder, but that's why you have to marvel at like Coach Griff or what Coach Baker did at Haddonfield. It's he since passed, but like it's amazing to see that these small schools can build these. So it can be done, but it takes a lot of work, a lot of planning, and it's all about culture.
uh-huh,
And now, Blue, you've always been a distance runner. All three of us here are distance runners, right?
uh-huh.
How has it been transitioning to coaching sprints? Because I feel like being a distance runner, the moment you start training, you've agreed to enjoy pain, and it's just something that it just comes with the territory. Sprinters, a lot of them are God-given talent, and you're just tweaking them and trying to teach them like, hey, you might be fast, but that champion over there is fast and works their ass off. Like, and sometimes it's tough to get through to high school kids, especially if they are good at dual meets, especially if they win a few invites and they're competitive and they're doing it off of just what they have. How's that transition been for you from being a distance runner, from being, a seventh runner on cross country teams, which means you're gritty, you work your ass off. That's always been your style. So how has it been trying to translate that to sprinters who are, generally much more God-given talent based?
Yeah. I have had to become a sprint coach just because I really haven't had distance runners. Since I've been at Chesapeake, it's 95% sprinters, and maybe once a season I'll get a distance runner. So but I've always loved like watching sprints and I love the technicality of it and but you're right. It's like there are kids that are just like have it, and then there's ones that don't, and it's harder to do like what I did as a runner, which is like put in the work and you'll see the progression as a sprinter, because sometimes it's just like you got it or you don't.
And we used to drop seconds.
You got to be fast.
We used to drop seconds in our races. Where sprinters, they're dropping point something, and that's sometimes a little tougher to kind of put in paper with kids. It's like, no, this was a great race. You did PR. Yes, it was 0.1, but it's still really good. Like, it's hard. Like, I can't imagine that.
Yeah. One thing that I think has helped me as a coach is still being in the sport myself, and still competing and still being able to like hop out on the track and do a workout with them or whatever.
Oh, you still could do that? I would die.
I've had, yeah.
I wouldn't be able to bend over and lace up my shoes at this point. So,
but I think there's like a huge like respect factor from the kids when I'm not just giving them a workout. I could jump in it with them, or I'm doing my own workout after practice, or like I'm still doing it myself, which I think helps in that like trying to motivate them to push themselves. It's like I'm not just like the coach that's talking and like oh, you need to do this and you need to do this. Like, no, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And like, I'll hop out on there and run a workout and I think that style for me has really helped in the motivation factor, at least.
Can Coach Blue still come out and drop a sub 7,400? What do we got?
No, I don't think I ever ran sub 70 even in my peak.
I was trying to think what you could run. I was like 70, 75. Which one should I go with?
Probably closer to 75.
So I want to switch a little gears here because you're a coach, you're a teacher, but you switched careers from teacher to counselor, which congratulations, you just got that job fairly recently, which is awesome. That obviously plays a different aspect, right? Because now you're delving into a little more of the mental psyche of students being a counselor. And mental health has, over the past, I want to say probably decade now, it's gotten a lot more attention. NFL does the My Cleats, My Choice, and a lot of athletes choose to bring up that, the mental health aspect of things. How have you seen the mental health of athletes, progress since you've been a coach? Obviously, you could talk about COVID because COVID affected a ton of kids. And even back to when we were athletes and things like that. What has been your, view on the mental health of everything going on right now?
Yeah. So when I was at Lakewood, I started to think that I might want to like go counseling route. And initially my reasoning for that was like, I wanted to help provide opportunities and resources for kids that might not have those opportunities or resources without athletics. So that is what initially I was like, oh, I want to be a counselor because I want to help them like in this process. I think every high school should have like an NCAA specialist counselor who helps with the whole process of making sure that you're NCAA eligible and making sure that you like helping with all the steps to like hopefully do sports at the next level. That was my initial. You don't want them
to hide the clearinghouse like they do on everybody and then drop it on you randomly. Like, hey, do you have your clearinghouse set? And you're like, the hell's a clearinghouse? I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. So, and unfortunately, I would see kids that like had the athletic ability, but didn't have the support to like get to that next step. And so that was why I initially wanted to move into counseling. And then as I'm like deciding if I'm going back to school, whatever, I realized that I think that the mental health aspect is really, really important. I think I'm really happy that it's being talked about more. But there's a lot of things that athletes go through that mental health wise that I really think they need the support. And just like most schools have an athletic trainer and it's like you're injured, you go to the athletic trainer. Well, like if stuff's going on like mental health wise, you should have somebody that you could go to.
Yeah.
I think it should be just as regular as the athletic trainer to go to your counselor or whoever it may be. And there's just so many different aspects of being an athlete and and the mental health aspect. So I mentioned it before, I was a dancer turned distance runner. Two things that have a lot of eating disorders, a lot of body image issues, a lot of like that's been my entire life being, I think that's like a major thing that needs to be addressed in athletics. And I love when I see these female athletes that are like, have such like body positive, because when you're trying to run really fast and you think that like losing weight or whatever is going to make you go faster, and you have this whole body image, it like that's huge, unfortunately, in distance runners. And I think it's something that
Coach Whitehall mentioned that on our episode.
Yeah. So that's one aspect of the mental health that I think. But then another thing that comes up is like the transitioning, if you do make it to that NCAA, that next level or the professional level, whatever it may be, like handling that transition, handling that balance, because some of these kids are coming from like they were the star at their high school to now they're on a college team and they're just like
Barely
a normal
varsity at
person.
that point. They
Yeah,
got to earn their spot. There's no, you're
They're all
not coming in as
stars.
fast. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Everyone
and
there, is a star.
yeah. So and then obviously transitioning into college in general is like there's a lot to handle and balance and whatever. But then when you put that pressure of being an athlete and the expectations of being an athlete on top of the normal transition into college pressure, I just feel like there should be more support in that area. And like I navigated it well as a college athlete, and I know other people that have also, but it's tough, and people don't make the transition easily. And then like dealing with injuries and stuff like that, or like being cut from a team or whatever, like going from this is your whole life and this is where you're investing all of your time into to like, hey, now I can't do it. Like whether it's injury and you're out for a little while and coming back or like for good. But like, how do you deal with that part of like that you no longer have this sport? And for me, running like is my happy place, and like the endorphins and all the positive things that come from it. Like if I'm away from it, that like does take a toll on my my mental health and my happiness. And so I feel like athletes are a specific group of people that need more support in that mental health area. But they also spent their whole life being like, you're tough, you're strong, persevere, push through it. Like, yeah, that's great. But sometimes you need the support, and like just allowing that to be more accepted so that they will seek the support if they need it.
So how much also do you find, because you are dealing with high schoolers a lot, and mental health is definitely a hot button thing right now. Like I work with a lot of high schoolers in my current job, and every kid I go to tells me they have panic attacks, anxiety, and depression. And I'm gonna look at them, I'm like, you probably don't. You're going through puberty. How much is that sometimes where you just have to sit there and listen, and you as a counselor, you have your professional opinion. You're obviously not, a psychiatrist or psychologist, but you have a good background in a lot of these things. How many times is that kind of walking that rope with some of these athletes and high schoolers where it's like, that's, a legitimate concern, what you're saying, or you might just be having puberty. This isn't necessarily like it's anxiety caused by puberty. Like that pimple on your face did not ruin your day. Like that's what we're dealing with in high school. So how much do you find that that's also a balance, and how is it to walk that tightrope also as a coach with these athletes where you want to push the right buttons to get them to work hard? You want them to be tough. You want them to fight through things and mental blocks, but at the same time, taking care of them so it's not detrimental. Like that to
Yeah.
me seems to be like a balance. It's hard to strike.
Yeah. It's definitely like a fine line in like, yes, they're sometimes they are really going through something but sometimes they just need a space to talk or a supportive person. And what I did in my internship, I did a counseling group with just athletes. And what it allowed me to do was create a community of athletes that like get each other and get the pressures of being athletes, and but they felt comfortable like talking about what's going on. Like, is it that they're so busy that they have no time and they're trying to balance all the things, or is it pressure from a parent or a coach or themselves, or like and just creating a community where they felt comfortable talking about these stressors, but then also like realized like that they're not the only ones going through it, and that like, and just creating the space to talk about it, and kind of taking away the stigma of like, yeah, you don't talk about mental health, or you don't talk about like all that, like you just push through it. Yeah, like I do want you to push through it, but finding that balance of like creating a support system so that you're able to push through it.
Yeah, and it's so big, and not just with athletics, just with that, kids in general. Like my daughter's 14, and I'm starting to see all these things, whether it's because everything's out there on social media. Like they have so many different things that they're fighting for this image that they want to have that we didn't have to as kids. You know, everything's
Mhm.
out there for everyone to see. So I
Yeah.
think it's great, you know, but yeah, like I do think maybe sometimes that athletes might need something a little more because sometimes, you know, they do have different, maybe a little few more expectations or pressures on them that maybe your average student doesn't have because of their athletics.
Listen, Dave, that MySpace top eight was really, really pressure. Okay. That was a lot. If you weren't on a top eight of your friends, that was bad.
So was the Ocean County Observer when I was in school.
That's true.
Yeah.
I didn't have
Um,
social media.
yeah. And the social media aspect, like across the board, I think is really tough because there's no escape. Um, if there's drama at school, and this is not just athletes, just high schoolers in general, if there's like when we were in high school, you could like go home and kind of avoid it, or like but now they are literally carrying the drama with them because it's on their phone, and they have no escape from it. And
We need to
they're
encourage them. Unfriend these people. Like there is the whole entire, and I get it. I'm not in high school right now, so the pressure is probably like up.
Yeah,
It's like just
it's crazy.
but it's like telling these kids and like making it okay. Like, no, no, no. If that person sucks, unfriend them. And
Mhm.
but, you know, and I get it. Like again, I was in high school. No one wants to be an outcast. No one wants
It's a
to.
status thing
It
too.
is
Like
a
I have all
status
these people
thing.
following me, or you know, like this person like that. Like
But yeah, I get
I
it.
don't
But
get it either.
also the
But
encouragement of like, you know, like I said, I deal with high schoolers all the time, and I'm like, who's usually the coolest kid in high school? It's not your big jock. It is that one kid that just kind of does what they want, whether it's a guy or a girl. They just kind of do what they want. They go with their own flow, and everyone kind of likes them. And you know, they're cool with everyone, right? And it's like encourage people to be that kid more, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah.
it's a whole different world now. Being in a high school now, ooh, it is a whole different. I mean, just getting kids to like, hey, we're not using phones during class. It's like, no, bring your phone, put it up in front of the class. We're not using it. Like it's like
Yeah.
it's like you ask them, you know, like someone died, you know, because they had to give up their phone. I'm like, it's just for an hour, guys.
Yeah.
Oh man. So I want to close out with you on the same
Mhm.
question that we ask everybody. And we miss Coach Briggs, so we have to have Coach Briggs on again because that haunts me that we didn't ask Coach Briggs. That pisses me off. But Blue, I'm going to ask you. We've been around this sport for a long time. Obviously, you know, if you've listened to this show, you know one of our goals to raise awareness of the sport, make this more fun for casuals, which is why we always like to hear the stories of all of our guests, right? Because everyone can relate to all of our stories and things like that. So if you had a magic wand and there was anything you can do to kind of fix this sport to make it more watchable for casual fans and make it profitable for people that deserve to get paid for how good they are, what would you do?
um, that I know you ask this question every time, and I knew it was coming. And so I the thing for me, what has made me more of a sport or a fan is going to see the events live. So I am a crazy marathon spectator. Like you should see me watching a marathon. I run almost as much as they do because I am like that's my. I've watched the New York City Marathon several times. I watch the Baltimore Marathon every year. I like
The trials last week.
yeah. I went to a friend's house last week to watch trials. Like, and my another person that is not a runner was like, "Wait, you're like going to watch them run a marathon?" And I was like,
You,
"Yeah."
you're goddamn right, I am.
Yeah. And last or not last summer, the summer before, I went to Worlds in Eugene, and it was amazing. And I went with a whole group of people, and I, in comparison to my other friends, did not know a lot of the athletes and did not know a lot of like the backstories and the like. My friends were like, "Oh, this is so and so, and this is so and so," and but then I left after the couple days of being there, and like now I'm obsessed with all of them. Like I follow them all on social media. I like you guys had
Marvin.
Marvin Bracy on, and like didn't know who he was until that day, and then I could have melted during that 100 final. Like so like but being there and seeing it live and seeing like the energy like made a huge difference for me as a like track fan. So I think that's where my thought is like how do we make it more accessible to fans to watch live, and because yeah, that made a huge difference for me, and made me a much bigger fan.
So I have a quick question for you, because it seems like there's a lot of not anger, but maybe resentment from a lot of the pro athletes that they have to go back to Eugene again every year. What was your experience like there as a fan? Was it expensive? Do you see why maybe some of these athletes are like, can we go somewhere else? We don't have to keep going here every single time.
Yeah, it was definitely expensive. Like tickets were pretty expensive, and you had to like buy them for each session, like the morning session and the evening session. And so I was there for 3 days and I needed 4 different tickets, and they were probably like $100 each or something, like, which, but it was amazing. It was worth it, but it was definitely expensive. And beyond track, like there's not much else in Eugene. It's just, so you're kind of limited to like hotels, Airbnbs, things like that. It's not like you're in like a big city and you have all of the, like, it is kind of limited in resources, I guess. It is unlike any other town or city, though, because you walk into a bar in any other city, you're going to see like football and basketball stuff on the walls. But in Eugene, it is track all the time, track everything. So
I got to get out there, man.
I love that about the town, is that it is track town there. That's not just a nickname, like it is. And so I can see both sides of it, like where I could see the frustration of it only going there and the expenses and things like that. But the environment when you are there is pretty amazing, that I don't know that you could recreate that in other places.
Right. I just think it's crazy that, some of the athletes going there, we probably make as much as they do. And I couldn't imagine like having to travel all of these places and put out your own money. Some events they do pay for we had the skinny from Eric Sawinski when he came on about how some of that stuff works. And it kind of sucks. I think that, what you said, and we mentioned it a bunch of times on the show, like we need to figure out ways to get a real circuit in the United States where we can truly pay these athletes. And I think Clayton Murphy said, if we had a United States circuit where they were guaranteed $50K for like 6 races, he's like, I could tell you probably every American outside of maybe Sydney and Noah Lyles would take it. And it's pretty crazy because he's like, the ones with the big deals, they probably do what they want. He's like, but everyone else would go there because it's guaranteed money. Yeah. You can map out your races. You can make a training plan. Like that's all there. And it's like, so we need to figure out a way. Blue, if you know anybody with deep pockets, let's go make a track series.
And one other thing I was just thinking, I think you guys have kind of mentioned it, and is like, can we make it more like the UFC, or like where, I'm a huge UFC fan, like where you run a certain amount of races, or like, because some fighters fight several times a year and some fighters fight once a year, and like, so the athletes still have control over like how much they're racing, but like, yeah, you have your appearance fee, you have your fight of the night, you have your,
you don't race, you don't get paid.
Yeah.
Shout out to my brother Brian Blue and All Star Fitness over there. Everyone go there in Jersey. Tom's over.
So we like that's another thought, is like, and then you get tickets to certain events because so and so, and obviously injuries and things happen, and like you're not always guaranteed, but like if whoever is fighting that in Baltimore, you're gonna like buy a ticket to that. Or if this person's racing in, I don't know, Florida, then you're gonna go to like, and people will buy tickets to follow specific athletes, I feel like, just like they do in the UFC.
So here's a question for both of you. We saw kind of a disaster with the LA Grand Prix last year where, people like, Sidney McLaughlin, Lavoni, and, they were all supposed to race there, and then boom, they're not there. Should there be penalties when athletes, if they pull out within like a certain amount of time, right? A week up to the event, all of a sudden they pull out. We've been selling tickets, we've been marketing you. Should there be a penalty unless it's like a legitimate injury, right?
Yeah.
Someone tears something, someone has a real injury. But if it's just like a tweak and you can compete on it, like should there be? Because I feel like that would stop some athletes from pulling out because we've had people, Clayton Murphy again, I'll bring him back. There's no motivation to not run if you're not 100% because the sponsors make it so difficult. You have to hit certain times. If you don't do it enough times, but should we be pressuring these athletes to compete more, even with these little minor injuries? Just because we're selling tickets on like, how many times have we seen lately over the past few years, these big sprint, they're going to battle. It's Noah Lyles or Fred Curley or, Marcel Jacobs and things like that. And then all of a sudden it's a week or 2 weeks before the event. Oh, I tweaked a little something. I'm not competing.
Or there's a final and there's like 3 lanes open.
Exactly. So should we be
I don't know how
penalizing these athletes?
I don't know how you could like how do you justify what is but like what's considered serious injury or not? Like I feel like they are definitely trying to do that in the NBA now by saying like you can't win the MVP unless you have a certain amount of games played. So I don't know if something like that worked, but I mean,
well,
obviously,
like
if you don't show up,
legitimate sprain,
you don't get paid. Like obviously, like you don't get showed up, you don't pay. So I guess maybe they could do it that way. I don't know how you would like really be able to say someone's hurt.
Or you get knocked down in the world rankings, like you officially like you're supposed to compete and you don't, you lose 5 places in the rankings or something. Like it depends on the level of the race too. Like if it's a platinum race and you don't go, or a diamond race and you don't go, steeper penalties, right? Because that ranking system's there. But there's got to be a way to like, oh, I have a little twinge in my calf.
Yeah,
I'm not going to go sprint. Like no, you're
but
I think do that.
But as we know from being runners, you never know what a little twinge can turn into, especially if you have the Olympics later in the year. So, like,
high school and college, we competed, and it changes in pros because of the contracts. High school,
of course, it does. It's like every other sport. Like,
no, because
you're not going to run if
they play in every other sport except for baseball. Baseball, they're a bunch of bitches. But
I think it's hard.
What's your view on that? Should there be Should there be some sort of system of penalizing?
I don't disagree with it, but I don't know how you draw that line. I think that's the problem is like where are we saying this is a legitimate injury versus this is not? And I do think like the appearance, like you get paid if you run or you don't, like that is the only way to kind of penalize it, is to have those like appearance fees and stuff. But it's really hard to draw the line and say like, oh, you are injured enough to not run, or you're not injured enough.
I mean, the only thing I would like,
didn't St. Pierre just come back from having a baby 6 months ago?
Yeah, and she just broke the American record.
Okay, I'm sorry. If a woman can come back in 6 months from having a child, you can run and win. You can run with a twinge in your leg. I mean,
what I would like to see is, say you are sign up to be at a race, and for whatever reason you can't compete. I'd like to see you still show up and sign autographs and have some sort of fan session, so at least the fans get to meet you and get like I would at least see maybe that to be a requirement. All right, you can't run, but you're going to be there. The fans are going to see Noah Lyles. They're going to see Sydney, but so you are going to be there, or you get nothing.
Well, Sha'Carri was at Melrose, right? And I think she did that. Sha'Carri was there.
She was there. Ajay Wilson was there. She wasn't running.
And shout out to Allie Wilson. Allie Wilson won a big 100. So that was awesome. We love Allie here.
Oh, I mean, we got some. I mean, Grant Fisher and Cole Hocker both breaking the American record in the 2 mile. Alicia Monson getting the American record.
So that's my thing. We see athletes toughing it out and running a lot. And then we see some that don't. I don't know. It just annoys me. I just want to see great athletes run a lot.
Well, but again, the athletes who are running through injuries are the ones who aren't getting paid that much money, so they have to. So again, it's a financial structure. Like the people who aren't like, they don't care if they miss one meet. They're still sponsored. They're still getting paid a lot of money. It's the people who have to grind, who like, I can't afford to be hurt, so they're gonna try.
Yeah, that's true. Blue, do you have anything else?
No, I feel like that's everything.
Yeah.
I just want to
Go, Dave.
really quick one say, Megan, thank you. It was awesome having you on, seeing your growth from a young coach to now having your own program. It's awesome. It's so good to see. And anybody who watches Flow Track, listen to Phil Grove when he is announcing any meet. He is amazing, and I want to give Phil a huge thank you for mentioning this podcast during the 800 meter of the Valentine meet.
Yes.
National broadcast, and he was talking about this show. He was a great guest, and thank you, and give him a listen. He's phenomenal.
Definitely. And so once again, our guest over here, she is Megan Blue. Obviously a coach with both of us and one of my good friends still to this day. She's the head track coach at Chesapeake High School in Baltimore County. And if you cannot tell, she is uber passionate about the sport, loves the kids, and is a fantastic coach. So, if you want, Blue, you giving out personal training, you should start personal training people to go run. We should do another side hustle. It's not like you don't do enough, Blue.
No, yeah, you're right. I don't do any personal training right now, but I have definitely, like, between working at my brother's gym when I still lived in New Jersey to if anybody that I know that's not a runner but wants to run a race, like signs up for like a half marathon or something like that, I always will write a training plan or write workouts. And so I don't do it officially. I probably could if I really wanted to, but I don't do it officially right now. I just do it for the love of it at this point.
And for reference, Blue can also kick your ass. She was a Muay Thai instructor, so she can also kick your ass. So that's another side of Blue. But again, thank you so much for coming on, Megan. We appreciate it. If everyone liked what they heard, give us a like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Look for us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. We'll be back next week with another exciting guest. We always have great guests. And, now after this show, Blue's big athletes are going to go win their state because that's what happens when you come on Talking in Ovals. So, everyone, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate all of you. See you next week. So long.